Hi, everybody. It's Dana Brigman, and we're continuing our talk on education about essential oils for dogs. And one of the most common questions that I get, and one of the most common things that I see out in Facebook land or Google land, is that essential oils are not safe for dogs. And that's just really not the case. There are some important caveats, if you will. The first and the foremost being the quality of essential oil matters the most. If you are buying your essential oils at the grocery store or some local retailer or the pet department of a mega retailer, you are not getting a high quality essential oil. The same is true for buying them off Amazon. Young Living will not sell their brand on Amazon. And there are a lot of fakers out there who are replicating or repurposing bottles and all sorts of stuff. So just steer clear of all of that stuff and know that when you're buying a truly quality product from a reputable resource, a good independent distributor who is there to help educate you, that you are on the right track. We then have to look at, are there some essential oils that we just shouldn't use, right? So, there are hundreds of essential oil, not brand, well, there are hundreds of brands, but there are hundreds of different essential oils. If you think lavender and lemon and peppermint and clove and geranium and jasmine, there are hundreds of those. And then when you start adding blends, there's even more. And so the question then becomes is, can I use all essential oils on my dog or on my pets? And the short answer is no, right? Most all of them are extremely safe, but there are some that we don't even want to use necessarily on ourselves without having a really good practitioner or aromatherapist guiding us to use them for some very specific purposes. In general, most essential oils are going to be safe to use in moderation with appropriate dilutions where necessary and for short periods of time. So let's take a look at some of the ones that we should not use. Ones, in fact, they're not even sold by the Young Living brand. And so some of those are going to be bitter almond, boldo, chenopodium, garlic essential oil, goosefoot, horseradish essential oil, juniper wood, which is not the same thing as the juniper berry. So I'll take this moment to highlight that when you have a plant, you have a variety of different components of that plant, from the root to the stems, or the trees would have bark, for example, to the buds or the seeds or the flowering elements of a plant. So there are many different elements of a plant material. So juniper wood is not the same thing as the juniper berry. Mustard, pennyroyal, santalina, sassafras, tansy, which is not the same thing as blue tansy that is in many of our wonderful favorite products, or wormwood. These oils are not even offered by the Young Living brand, so don't worry about those when you're using Young Living products. You're going to hear from a number of people. Some are aromatherapists, some are so-called experts, and then some are Dr. Google and Nurse Facebook. And they're going to say we can't use products like tea tree around the dog. and that we shouldn't use anise or birch or camphor or cassia, clove, hyssop, oregano, ruta, savory, thyme, tea tree, and wintergreen. Those are some of the most common, oh, be careful, you shouldn't use those with your dog. And there are some important things to understand about these, right? Again, it is the quality of essential oil that matters, the reason for which you're using it. And remember, I will remind you here that they are not air fresheners. That's not their goal, right? They smell fabulous, but our goal of using products like this is not just air freshener, right? So we know that when we use these essential oils, we find them often used in a variety of benefits for things like first aid, for the raindrop technique, in misting sprays. They do have a number of healing properties. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these in a minute, but that's the key. Remember what their properties are intended to do, right? What are those constituents within those oils doing for our bodies and our emotions, right? So we know that when we have good quality essential oils and we see these oils show up in blends or in collections of essential oils, that they're going to be safe to use. Let's take a look. Anise, for example, is going to be found in Digest. So Digest is one of those wonderful products that we all need to keep on hand at all time for digestive upset, tummy woes, little discomfort in the belly. And I use Digest with my dogs all the time. You're going to find camphor in Valor. Valor is another must-have, and it's that oil that we all use for confidence and courage. And in the pet world, I use it with dogs who I feel like need to overcome a little bit of insecurity and find their confidence, find their sort of overcoming of their fears and their insecurities, and starting to make their way out into the world and feel a little bit better about doing that. We're going to see clove essential oil in Thieves, and clove has many beneficial properties. Putting it in some of our dental care is a great thing to do. We're not going to just take clove oil and start using drop after drop after drop after drop directly on or in our animals, right? It's going to be part of some other combination of a blend or a spray that we're making, or a salve or an ointment or whatever that we might use these things for. And so that's the important piece to understand, is that we're not just walking around swiping clove, into our dog's mouth or onto their body all day, every day. And that's an important thing to understand. Ruta is one. Now, if you've ever used the Rutavala and put it on yourself or your pet, it does not smell great. So most people will put it on their feet, but you'll find it in Rutavala, and you'll find it in one of the most absolutely fabulous animal scents blends called Tea Away. We use Tea Away for dogs all the time. Tea Away has about 27 different essential oils in it, and it is really beneficial for those dogs who have been through some sort of trauma, carry a lot of stress, carrying a lot of emotional baggage. Tea Away is a beautiful, wonderful essential oil that is used with animals all the time, and Ruta is in it. So you'll also find oregano, thyme, and wintergreen in the Raindrop collection. And we use these oils neat on most dogs, meaning, and in fact, when we do the raindrop, and I'll do a presentation on it soon as well, but when we do the raindrop, we apply those oils neat, and we apply a lot of drops, right? Because we're going to do the animal's feet, their legs, and their back. And so it's not just a drop, it might be 7 or 8 drops, or maybe more, depending on the size of the animal, of each of those essential oils. Now, would we do that and suggest this wonderful technique called the raindrop if we thought those oils would be harmful to our pets? Of course not. Cats are a little different, but right now we're talking about our dogs. And so this is absolutely fabulous for that. And I have never seen an animal respond poorly to using these, nor have I heard of it when using Young Living essential oils in these techniques and protocols. So I want you to start to have a little confidence about that and understand that there is a lot of information, a lot of research, and a lot of expertise from people that can help guide you, and to be very careful when listening to Dr. Google and Nurse Facebook. Okay? So, and then the other big one that we hear a lot about, oh, you can't use this, is tea tree. And tea tree shows up time and time again in Facebook posts and out on the internet saying you shouldn't use tea tree with a dog. I'll remind you again, they are not air fresheners. And one of the studies that, or not studies, one of the scenarios that we know about with the dog who was unwell several years ago and went through this big internet explosion of sharing Facebook posts about how tea tree essential oil was harmful to dogs, was a synthetic product. It wasn't authentic tea tree. And I use tea tree not in my diffuser, though I know many people do. I know some people will add tea tree to their diffuser and to their cleaning products. But I tend to reserve tea tree as an add needed part of first aid or skin health support. So I use it for a very specific purpose for a short period of time, sometimes neat and sometimes in some sort of balm or salve or spray that I've made to work with a particular skin type issue. Okay, so I don't diffuse it, but I do use it often when needed. All right, so it's very important to understand that. Very important to understand that the quality matters. It's important to understand that a product like tea tree is often manipulated, often not authentic, often a synthetic. There's a word that I'm looking for in my head and I can't find it right now. But we know that people try to mass produce these products in cheap ways and then sell them as if they are high quality or not containing any sort of other constituents or chemicals or additives. And it's sort of a false marketing. You would have to read the label, do a little bit of research on those companies, and really start to understand what it is when we say quality matters. An essential oil needs to be pure and authentic with nothing else added to it. And that the process of distillation and the process of bottling is very authentic and principled and well practiced, and that they are not using anything to stretch the volume of the material that the actual plant can produce. So very important to understand. So Other things that you'll hear is, so let's go back to clove, for example. There are oils that will be considered hot, and clove, for example, is one of them. Peppermint, though, has a cooling sensation. Some people would call that hot, because when you put those oils on the animal for the first time, they're going to feel a sensation that they're not used to feeling and may be a bit uncomfortable with that. So that's where we move into having them diluted. And remember the video we did yesterday about either adding a carrier oil to spread it over a bigger area and to slow down its absorption, or mixing it into some other blend or some other volume of carrier so that it is truly diluted into a smaller amount, and then use those dilutions. So you'll hear a number of people talk about hot oils. We tend to think of phenols, oils that contain high constituent phenols, as being those hot or spicy oils. And we can use them. We do use them all the time. And it's just really important to understand how to use them. And that typically is with some sort of carrier and a dilution of some sort. Okay? Let's see, what else can I tell you about this? If you're ever in doubt, if you're like, I don't know if I can or should, or oh my God, I heard, ask questions, get the right answers, dig out reference books, real reference books, not Dr. Google and Nurse Nancy, or Nurse Facebook rather. Really start to ask the questions and go to people who are using these high quality products, who have studied this, who are studying every day, and get answers that will help you to understand what is safe, what's effective, and how to use them, and how to use them properly for your pets. But if you're just ever truly not sure or uncomfortable with something, don't use that one. There's nobody forcing anything. Nobody's saying you have to use these essential oils. You may be guided that that's the best option, but you still have the choice. And if you're not sure, just put that one aside and say, I need to learn a little more about it. I need to do a little more research. I need to hear some more testimonies, and pick another option, because there are so many that have a variety of different benefits, right? And so many that even though it works well for me and my dog, it might not work well for you and yours. And that's okay. There are lots to choose from and a lot of ways to approach some very similar results. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If you're trying to remember what the list was I said that Young Living does not sell, or those that you're going to hear about people giving you the warning, I will share the link to my blog where I have these written out so that you have access to that.